Welcome to the Business Like a Mother show, where we share real strategy, radical honesty, and the conversations no one else is having. For moms building businesses on their own terms while burning down the patriarchy, one business at a time. Let's jump in. Hey, Renegades, welcome back to Business Like a Mother. This is Jen, your host, and I'm super excited for today's conversation because it's my first international one with a guest joining me from the wee hours of the morning in Brisbane, Australia. Today, I'm talking to Casey Lightbody. She is a self-proclaimed boy mom and someone who has spent 2 decades in the marketing world between corporate agencies and, as she calls it, the whole circus, before figuring out that she actually never wanted to be the loudest person in the room. She's an introvert who built a business anyway, and it is the thing that she now cares the most about, showing other quiet and thoughtful women that you don't have to perform your whole life on social media to do well. Yes. She'd much rather have a real conversation with one person than chase 1,000 likes. Outside of work, you can find her playing pickleball, my new obsession, walking by the ocean, and getting roped into her kids' world. But she's a big believer that how you build your business should actually fit the life you want, not swallow it whole. And the renegade perspective we're going to get into today is all about partnership-based marketing, because she believes it is the oldest and most effective growth strategy in business. And it's the way most people's best clients already come in, but everyone ignores it because it's not visible enough to screenshot. Welcome so much to the show, and thanks for getting up early to have a conversation from across the world with me.
Thanks for having me, Jen. I'm so excited to be chatting with you.
I am excited too. The social media thing has been really top of mind for me because a couple months ago, I had my kind of reckoning and was just like, I'm done. I don't want to do Facebook. I don't want to do Instagram. And took it off my phone, and I have not missed it at all. I want to start with your renegade origin story, because you, as you said, you were like the whole circus. You had a corporate career, then you started an agency, and you did all of this while raising your boys. What did that juggle look like during the corporate and agency years? And then how did motherhood shape the way that you eventually built the business you wanted to build your way?
Yeah, I love that, Jen. So we were living in the UK at the time, and I had my first son, and I'd worked my way up the corporate ladder for, 5-10 years. And when he came along, now I'm dating myself. I call myself a seasoned chicken. But back in the day, they said that when I had my first son, they said it's full-time or nothing. There was no part-time options available, right? And so I would drop him off at daycare, 6:00 in the morning. I'd commute an hour and a half one way, come back, pick him up, literally feed him and put him to bed. And I was like, what is the point of this? I'm not spending any time with him at all. So that's when I decided I'm quitting corporate. Like, that was it. And in between that, I then had my other 2 boys, and we immigrated to Australia. And I said to my husband, okay, it's now or never. The kids are a little bit older. I'd been a stay-at-home mum, so I'd been with them, but they were all now at that age where we were getting into kindy and first years of school. I said, it's my time to start my own business. I want to have the freedom and flexibility to be with my kids. And I think owning your own business is the way to go. So I started this consulting business that turned into an agency. We grew really quickly. I was doing all the things that I thought that I should be doing in marketing and business development, and I completely burnt out, Jen. And there I was thinking that I'd created this dream business, that I'd have all this freedom and flexibility to be with my kids at all their school events, football matches, assemblies, all the things. And I was literally completely burnt out. And I made a really hard decision at that time to burn that business to the ground. It was successful on paper, and I just was actually sitting at this very desk, and I was like, what is the point? I literally am throwing dinner on the table, and that's all I'm doing, seeing the kids. And so, that's when I had my reckoning moment, and I was like, wow, here I am thinking that I'm building this dream business, and it's a complete nightmare. And so I realized then that I wanted to really support other quietly powerful women to grow businesses that feel really aligned to who they are, and then create that life that really fuels them too,
So much we could get into. Well, yes. I mean, I think so many of us, we start a business because we want something different. And then
Mhm,
we fall into the trap of either burnout because we're trying to wear all the hats and do all the
mhm.
things. We're carrying the mental load of motherhood and the mental load of your business, whatever that looks
Right.
like, whether you're a solopreneur or you're responsible for other people's jobs and livelihoods. Or you start to build something. And my story was more, I was doing it in a way that I just hated. It wasn't work I
Mhm,
wanted to do anymore.
mhm.
I didn't want to do the funnels and the ads and all this stuff. And so I also had that burn it to the ground moment.
Right.
So then when you had that moment and you launched the Quiet Collective, what did you do differently this time?
Yeah, so I really went back to figuring out what feels good for me. So I didn't know about human design back then. I wish I did actually, because it was life changing for me. But I started to really feel like, okay, this really doesn't feel aligned to me. So I remember when I was growing the agency, for example, I would go to these speed networking events, Jen, and literally I would walk in and it was this cacophony of noise and this business card swapping. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to retreat for 2 weeks after that because I was so exhausted from it. So I really had to feel into what feels really good for me. And so as I was building this, I knew deep down that my vision, my mission was to support other women to grow their business sustainably and for us to come together to lift each other up. That vision has never changed, but I had to go about marketing in a way that felt really good for me. So one of the things that I believed was, as an introvert, I love to read, right? There's nothing better than to curl up with a book under my cozy covers. And so I thought that I should be good at writing, right? And so I was like, I'm going to start a blog. So again, this is, back in the day, and I started this blog and I hated it. I was like, what am I doing? I do not enjoy this. I actually, funny enough, love to chat, and I love to get on like interviews like this and love to chat. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. And so I started a podcast, and at the time I was in a mastermind, and my very first guest at the time was Jamie Tardy. Jamie Masters now. She's the podcast host of The Eventual Millionaire, and she's interviewed people like Tim Ferriss and Seth Godin. Nothing like diving into the deep end on my very first interview of my very first podcast, but that was me throwing myself into the deep end. And I really loved it. And I really flexed my courage muscle to keep going. And so fast forward a couple of months later, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to put on a summit. And I really love interviewing and spotlighting other amazing women. And so that's what I did. I put on a summit, and my very first keynote at that summit was Amy Porterfield. And Amy Porterfield was big at the time, not as big as she is now, obviously. And, there's a whole story attached to that, but we had 4,000 people come through that very first summit. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm onto something. It's all about relationships. It's all about connection. It's all about actually building these threads of connection into thick, sturdy ropes. And that's going to last the passage of time, right? And so really going back to marketing in a way that felt aligned to me. And literally it was all about just connection and relationships at the end of the day. And that's how I've grown my business. And so it was just following my heart and just trusting what felt good to me in the moment, and then noticing the signs and the signals that came as a result of that.
Hey, Renegade, taking a quick pause from this episode because your business just texted. It wants a mom friend. Not another 7 a.m. networking event full of dudes in polos. Not another piece of advice from someone who's never made 3 snacks before 9 a.m. or worked from a laptop in the hallway because their kid needed them nearby to sleep. The kind of friend who gets the late night laptop sessions, or the kid who got sick the day of the client meeting. The juggle that nobody prepared you for, and the mental load that would flatten most people. The ones who give you permission to say the thing, charge the rate, and show up as the most unapologetic version of yourself. That's Renegade Motherhood, the membership community for moms in business who are done building alone. We offer real referrals, real coaching, and real friendships with women who are burning down the status quo, one business at a time. And I have a special offer for podcast listeners. Use the code Like a Mother to save $50 on your first month or annual membership. You can learn more in the show notes. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, so it's funny because I have an acting background. And so I had people telling me for so many years, like, well, you should just do more like a live video. You should just go live every day, when that was like really, I mean, it's still kind of the thing, but it was like really the thing, however many years ago that was. And I would just try, and I hated it. I just was like, so I'm like the musical theater commercial actor who hates going live, but I actually really like to write.
Right? Yeah.
So yeah, it just goes to show that sometimes we either listen to other people's opinions of what they think of us too much, or we just shut all over ourselves because we're like, but I can do it. I can speak in front of 5,000 people. Why can't I just like talk to my phone? But if you don't like it, you don't like it, and you have a choice in the matter. And that's what's
exactly
often overwhelming, because there are so many ways that you can grow your business and get visible. So I think but it's funny because even though we have like this whole menu of options, we still tend to get sort of stuck on these Instagram and Facebook and stuff, because we just still think like that's the way. And to be reputable, I have to be there.
Absolutely, Jen. And this is what I said, I'm like, there are a million and one different ways, tactics to market yourself. And it's really about coming back to your inner quiet, right? Listening to yourself and trusting that that's the way. And it's not the sexy, that stuff often that you're seeing that's really visible, that's working. It's just, you get wrapped up in what you think you should be doing, or what is appearing to be the most successful way to market,
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more just about the content hamster wheel that I think so many people get on. And I think with, AI now on the scene, there's even more content being produced, and there's all these now shortcuts where you can just go on to a chatbot and have them write content for you. So you should be in all the places, because now it's easy to just replicate yourself everywhere. What are you seeing when people come to you saying, oh my God, stop the insanity, get me off this hamster wheel? Like, what kind of content fatigue are you noticing?
Yeah, so it's so interesting, Jen, because this is definitely what I'm seeing, because I feel like on one hand, we are being told that it's harder than ever to be seen, and it's really important to be building a personal brand, right? And what I'm also seeing is this absolute dilution of trust at the same time, right? So I don't know if you've heard about it, but there's been an amazing person that's had an incredible launch online. Jessie Jean is her name. And she has she just launched a challenge around how to talk on video. Interestingly enough, I was like, she's running a challenge, and she's just had a $1.2 million launch, and she's just launched a second time yesterday. She had another launch of $1 million in 75 minutes, right? And I'm like, wow, this is absolutely incredible. So we're seeing all this sexiness of what's possible online. And at the same time, she posted that someone had actually taken a clip of her video, overlaid it with her voice, and was promoting a completely separate product that she had no affiliation with. She didn't know this company. She didn't know anything about it. And so this is the biggest concern that I've got, is that the more that we are using AI to produce content, how much of it is actually believable versus not? And this is what I'm really concerned about. And so this is, I think, a lot of people who are really committed to making a big impact in the world and are doing work because they care about purpose and people over profit, right? This is the people that I'm working with, is they really deeply care about the impact that they're making. But at the same time, like, how do we do that in a way that is authentic and believable online when we're having to compete with the robots, as you call it?
It's such a can of worms that I don't have answers to. I mean, it's the AI conversation is interesting. We are seeing this complete, diluting of messages and everything starting to sound the same. And it's really interesting. There's no safeguards around people just taking your intellectual property and putting it into a chatbot and making it their own. So it's kind of the Wild West.
It does. Feels like the Wild West, and that's when I come back to, I call it, the age old yet little used strategy of partnership marketing, because, I feel like that is an opportunity for us to really accelerate trust through leveraging other people's audiences without having to rely on building our own platforms. And so I think there's this balance, right, Jen? And I do think there is the Wild West of, okay, how do we build authority around our intellectual property, keeping it authentic, being found, being seen, and it not being replicated by AI. So I think that this is an important piece, but at the same time, how can we actually get visible and get our get eyeballs onto our content in different ways, in a way that you can accelerate trust? And so that's where I really am so passionate about partnership marketing, because I think it is such a little used strategy where we can really leverage these audiences where trust is already established, and you can have that trust transfer mechanism that works,
I'm curious, why you think more women in particular don't take action when it comes to partnership marketing.
So let's talk about that first. I think that's a really interesting thing, Jen, because one of the things that comes up is, I've never considered it before. So it's one thing that they haven't thought about, which I find so fascinating, first of all, because I think it's exactly what we talked about, is that social media is the sexy thing. You're seeing it every time you open your phone. It's visible to you, right? So it's not such an obvious strategy, I don't think. So people don't naturally think about it. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing that comes up is, especially for those who are earlier stage in business, I feel that they don't feel like they've got the currency to swap. And, I always bust that myth, because I think, when I had Amy Porterfield as a keynote speaker, I probably had 100 people on my list. What value did I have having her as a keynote? And so it's all about, I talk about it being the knowledge gap, right? So if you can start to think about, okay, who are partners where I can come in and complement what they're offering? What is a complementary service as you're thinking about their entire customer journey? I talk about upstream partners, downstream partners. So what's the customer journey? Who do they need before they need to work with you? Who do they need after they've worked with you? Or who do they need even while they're working with you? The example that I use is, there's a running coach, for example, who trains athletes on running ultra marathons. And one of the things they don't have is the expertise around fueling for a 100-kilometer race. And this is where one of my clients, Rebecca, she's a dietitian who works with extreme athletes. And so she would partner with running coaches to come in and teach their clients how to fuel or how to nourish themselves while they're running so that they can get to the finish line. So it's those kind of examples to think about, okay, well, what's the value that you can come in and plug into? You don't need a massive audience, right? So that's the third thing. That's the second thing. The third thing is size doesn't matter. It really is an interesting thing that I've experimented with, where I've got on stages where there's been 15,000 people and, haven't made much out of that at all. And equally, I've hopped on a stage with 500 people and made 5x my investment, right? So it's those kind of things I think, not considered. And then, do I have what it takes? Do I have the currency to swap?
Yeah, I think there's, especially in the beginning, or even someone who's a little bit further along with their business, but maybe has more of a boutique business and thinks like partnerships or pitching yourself for a summit or pitch it for any kind of opportunity, a podcast even, that we have to be further enough along. And there's a point in how do you define further enough along? How are we measuring ourselves? And it can't be just metrics and email opt-ins and I think ultimately so much of it just boils down to a lot of that I talk about is that I think women and moms, we are really afraid to take up space. So I love that you call yourself an introvert, because I think that what we might think of is like, well, you don't want to, then you're afraid to sort of take up space, but like you can be an introvert and take up space your way. And I can be more of an extrovert and take up space in my way. And really about breaking the rules that I think both like society and like the patriarchy, kind of these like old guard business kind of coaches have put on us. But also rules that we have maybe kind of created for ourselves that aren't serving us.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Jen. Yeah.
So, okay. So this is called the Quiet Conquer Code. So you talked about what a good partnership looks like. But I think that a lot of people maybe hear this word and they picture like a cold outreach, something really awkward, something sliding into the DMs or something, or just sending off some AI written email that has no personality and it just goes to spam. And that could be another thing that is just sort of holding people back. So I guess, could you talk us through like what would it actually look like in practice?
Yes. So I think the first thing, and this actually ties back into the earlier conversation about what holds people back. And I think, if people are considering partnerships, oftentimes we equate partnerships with referrals, right? And I think referrals are really at the bottom of the funnel. So when I talk about the Quiet Conquer Code, the first thing that we need to really figure out is, okay, what is your strategic objective here? Like, what are you looking to achieve in the next season of your business, and how can partnerships complement that? So there are so many different strategies around partnerships that you can be leveraging in terms of podcast guesting, lead magnet swaps, round tables, referrals, going into other people's audiences. And each of those is actually supporting a different objective, Jen. So that's the first piece that we look at and say, okay, how can, like, as you think about partnerships as a tactical marketing step, how does that support your overall objectives? That's step number one. Step number two is really getting clear. I call it your crusade, right? So I feel like, when we are working in partnership with someone else, not only is there transfer of trust from a credibility and endorsement perspective when you're getting into someone's audience, but also there's a piece that I think women, as we're naturally intuitive, we can feel our way into things. So there's a values alignment piece. So it's really important when I'm working with clients for them to get clear on, okay, what is their crusade? What is it that they are? What's their big vision? What is the big purpose? And what are their values? Because when you can find partners that have aligned values to you, you can feel that, right? And so that's a big piece that we work on before we even decide to start pitching. Is figure out, okay, what's your values and what's the alignment with your potential partner. Next thing is then looking at, okay, what is your overall asset suite? What are the swappable assets? What are your key stories? What are your, does it make sense? Your micro magnet or your lead magnet, does it lead to the right offer? And just making sure that is all aligned in advance so that you clear going into a partnership, first of all, what it is that you can offer. And then is the outcome going to actually deliver what it is that you want? I mean, the story that I share is that summit that we had 4,000 people in, and I don't share this very often, but Jen, we didn't make any sales off the back of that. And I was like, wow, what's going on here? I'd even considered it, right? I just put together the summit because it felt good. I hadn't thought about the entire journey that I had to take my people on. So a big lesson there. So, really looking at, okay, what is it like? What's the journey? And then we get into the partnerships. And so there are beautiful human ways to start connecting. Keith Ferrazzi has a great book around this where he talks about the pinging strategy. And I talk about building these little threads of connection, And so if you ask, cold outreach is great. If you can create, if there's a values alignment piece, if you've built rapport with that person before, if you've taken the time to get into their world and understand what it is that they're doing and what their objective is. So I'm always, what's in it for them, right? Mm-hmm. It's not what's in it for me. It's what's in it for them. I talk about it being a generosity strategy, right? Because when you can kind of give without any expectation of what's going to come back to you, amazing things happen. So we look at like, okay, what is that? Like, what is the pinging strategy? Building those little threads of connection into a strong, sturdy rope. And then we make the ask, right? And so that's the journey that I take them on.
I appreciate that you shared the like story behind the story of the summit,
Right.
because I have been there, and I think that a common mistake that I've made, and I think probably a few people listening to this probably have too, where we're doing for the sake of doing, and we're not thinking about, or we're so concerned about like what the audience is going to get out of it. We're not actually thinking about what we need to get out of it too.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and I think that is a maternal instinct. We want to take care of everybody. We want the guests to have a great experience and get visibility and get sales. We want the listeners, the people in the seats, whether it's physical or virtual, to get so much value from it. And then we are like, oh my God, like what about my bottom line? What about my sales? And so we omit it, sometimes because maybe we just aren't thinking about it. Sometimes it's because I think we have a lot of baggage around asking for the sale or being salesy and all that shit.
Right. Right.
I think sometimes we can very quickly turn into a charity before actually being a profitable business.
And I think this is true for my people, Jen, and I don't know for your listeners if this is true, you know, but we are built, like, so often we go into business because we want to make a difference as women, right? And I think this is a really nasty trap that we fall into where, you know, we're so driven by the impact that we want to make that the money side of thing is a great afterthought. And at the end of the day, I believe that women are going to heal and lead the world, especially the quiet ones. And so but we're not running expensive hobbies, right? We've got to make profit, because more money in the hands of more women is actually going to impact the world, right? And so
absolutely,
this is a really, it's such a, you know, like you said, it's pervasive and it's an ongoing, story about its icky, sleazy, slimy sales. But when you can get out of your head and just really think about, okay, like how are we serving those people by holding back our genius and our gifts and our expertise, that's actually doing a disservice to the other person, but ultimately to the impact that you want to make in the world too, you know?
Yes. What I like about your approach is that it's clearly a well thought out system of like not putting the cart before the horse, right? Like as in the summit example of like not planning the whole event and then forgetting like, oh, why the fuck am I actually doing this summit, right?
Exactly. I am a 3-5 manifesting generator, Jen. So I go all in, I experiment like hell, and then come back and say, oh shit, that didn't work.
Yes.
Why didn't it work? How do I fix that? So, you know, everyone has the gift of all my fall down moments, you know?
Yeah, no, and I'm a manifester. And so I'm here to like start movements and blaze a trail, but it's often like a hot mess in action. So I need some better systems. Otherwise, It's just like a lot of taking up space, but not having any kind of like foundation under it.
Foundation.
Mm-hmm. So, and there's room for all of us, right? We all need each other.
Exactly.
But what is like the most common mistake that you see other women making when they try to do some of this partnership work without really a strategy or a system?
It's the system, Jane. It's absolutely the system, right? This is the thing that I bang on about, is that consistency, you know, for us manifestors or manifesting generators, can get a little bit boring. So it's like, how can we actually put in place systems that it's rinse and repeat, right? And so there are some things in the back end. I call it the partnership engine, right? And so we've got to have that consistency of continuing the paying strategy, continuing the outreach, continuing the follow-up, continuing the follow-through, continuing the relationship building post the collaboration. So there's all these steps that are really, really important, but we can put that in place. We can automate a lot of that stuff, especially with AI now. It's like, okay, well, how can we actually use AI to our advantage and save us time from that perspective, right? So it is the consistency piece, and then it's finding the fun in the boring too, right? For me, it's really important to say, okay, business is, at the end of the day, if you want a successful business, it's about chopping wood, carrying water. How do you, it becomes boring. The things that work, you want to carry on doing. And so it's like, okay, well, how do I find the nuggets of fun? So for me as a manager, it's all about the satisfaction piece for me internally. It's how I feel. And so the things that I've identified is, okay, for me to feel satisfaction, I have to feel fun, contentment, and joy. So those three pieces of like, okay, what feels fun for me? How do I feel contented, or where do I feel joy? And I'm finding those pockets in my business while continuing the engine. Does that make sense?
Yes, I just led a strategy call within my community today. And one of the things we looked at was what worked well for you, what brought in income, and then also what was fun, and was there an overlap? Was there something that was fun that also moved the needle forward?
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
If there wasn't, it was like, okay, well, what could that be? And if there was, like, great, maybe more of that. So you have to find ways to have the systems and also make sure that you're still carving out time for fun, and I'll even say creativity as well.
Creativity. Absolutely. Yeah. It's actually reminded me something, Jen, that I've just literally done last week again for myself. And this might be a really handy tip for your listeners. I do it when I can feel that something's going on for me where I'm like, where's this friction? Something's like, I can feel this little piece of, dissatisfaction and like an unsettled feeling. And I'm like, oh, something's going on for me. And sometimes you can't actually identify it, but it's a pain in the ass, but it's so useful. And I did a time audit last week where I set my alarm for 15 minutes, every 15 minutes, and I would record what I was doing in that 15 minutes. And I had neutral, energizing, draining. And so it helped me actually identify. And I was like, well, hold on a second. I've just spent 70% of my week. I didn't even think that I was doing that, but it's there on paper now, that I've actually spent 70% of my work on draining tasks. What do I need? What do I need to ditch, delegate, or do, or differently to actually bring back that energizing piece? So that was a huge aha moment for me last week, and now making strategic decisions this week to say, okay, what do I need to do differently to actually bring more energizing work to my week,
What's the number one most draining thing that you do in your business?
Admin. I was like, oh, I can see I need another team member.
Yes.
But I heard, again, AI can come in, so for example, my inbox, it's embarrassing.
It can't be worse than mine, so it's okay.
Just so bad. Anyway, I heard of a really, really cool tool, because I don't have someone in my inbox, because I like the personal touch of being in my inbox, right? But it can be a few days before I get back to people. But again, AI has an amazing tool that you can actually set up now, and apparently does drafts and actually learns how you speak. So I'm going to trial that and see what happens with my inbox and see if that works. So,
all right. You'll have to Voxer me and let me know how that goes.
I'll let you know that.
Because I could use that. There is a part of me that is I have a little nervousness around letting AI into too much of my
exactly right
stuff.
Right? Exactly.
I worry about it like going rogue. It's like, oh, your business is renegade motherhood. I'm just gonna go rogue.
Go rogue.
Tell everyone to just fuck off.
Right. So, and that's my concern too. It's like, how much access do you give it? So it is.
Yeah.
I feel it's a whole can of worms, like you said. It's the Wild West, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this and just see. But
experiment and see what happens. All right. So the last question I love to ask every guest is, right now in this season of your life and business, how are you doing business like a mother?
Oh, how am I doing business like a mother? I feel like I'm at such a different season of my life as a mother, Jen. So I am juggling empty nester at the moment. So it's a whole new season that I am getting used to. And so I think my business, I'm really from a business perspective, I feel like this is riding alongside me stepping into a new identity, like rediscovering myself actually outside of a full-time mum. And so I think that this is like, I'm in this season of like, okay, business is great, but it's all about experimenting with the things that feel, okay, I'm going to use the word fun for me, which is where the pickleball piece comes in, right? Because I was like, oh, wow, I have the space and the freedom to do pickleball 5 times a week if I want. And I don't have to worry about getting dinner on the table because my boys aren't at home, And so I think that's a piece where I felt like, especially when, as I was building the business and the kids were so little and both of them were so demanding of my time, suddenly I had the space and the creative freedom in my business, but the creative freedom to actually find what feels fun in my personal life too. So that's the season that I'm navigating.
Well, and I like that you're not necessarily just filling the extra time with more work, that you're actually being mindful about like, I'm going to do something fun and play pickleball, because I think that's the trap that even moms with kids, younger kids still home, fall into, is like every moment has to be about kids or work.
And and I just remember back in the day, I was working with a mentor, and this was back in the day where I was like, literally, as you said, Jen, I was working or I was mothering, like it was one of the two. And she said to me, she turned to me and she said, Casey, but what do you do for fun? And I looked at her blankly, and it was like this, such a wake-up call for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I have got no idea what that is, And so I've really taken that to heart from that moment. And I was like, oh, it is all about not filling the time, because like you said, creativity, downloads, productivity, all that can come in such different ways, shapes and forms. And it's not about filling your time, because you've got just this precious moment, right, to spend on your business.
I took so much away from that conversation with Casey, and I hope you did too. And I hope it gave you just some new things to think about when it comes to partnerships and getting off of that constant social media marketing hamster wheel, that maybe you've been telling yourself the story that you have to be on it, even if it's making you hate your life and your business. There are other ways. And speaking of, Casey has a free gift for podcast listeners called 13 Timeless Yet Overlooked Marketing Strategies to consistently generate high-quality leads and stabilize revenue, all without posting daily or hoping the algorithm's in a good mood. You can find the link to that in the show notes. So be sure to subscribe, leave a positive review, and share this with other renegades in your life who need to know how to do business like a mother. Thanks so much. I will talk to you next time.